All right. Hello, everyone. How are we doing? Happy Friday, April 10th, 2020. Let me set up here to make sure we're good so I can see your comments. If you are, let me turn this down. If you are here live, hashtag live. If you're catching this on the replay, hashtag replay. Super excited to have you guys here. And today I have the incredible Tiffany, and it's the last name Toombs?
Toombs, yeah, you got
Toombs. Perfect. Here with me, and I'm really, really looking forward to this interview. I think when we first connected, I had posted something about like really supporting people through this time of COVID. And not only supporting people through this time of COVID, but specifically, I think supporting entrepreneurs. We have, this is a show for entrepreneurs, and it's going to be how do we understand NLP so we can get insight. And we're going to be talking about limiting beliefs. We're going to be talking about motivation, and we're going to be talking about sales, right? So all of it is going to be covered. And I'm really looking forward to this. So for those of you who are new here, let me just introduce you to the Sales Brand Show. My name is Luz Gonzalez. Hey, Preston. Hey, Andrew. How's it going? My name is Luz Gonzalez, and I am the host of the Sales Brand Show. And through sales branding, what we do in this community is we guide you on how to take your coaching, your consulting, and your small business online to become an online magnet for your dream clients, use social media and digital content strategy to easily make more sales, and create a raving community of lifelong fans that convert into lifelong customers. So you can share your gifts with the world, which is what I think you're here to do, so we can together make a bigger impact and difference here in the world. All right, so let me go ahead and introduce our guest. So Tiffany has quite an impressive background. So I'm going to go ahead and read a little blurb here. You guys may know Tiffany Toombs as the international speaker and leading expert on rewiring the unconscious mind for success and tapping into your personal potential. For over 20 years, Tiffany has educated and transformed the lives of thousands of people across the world. She is the author of Stop Being a Selfish, we're gonna go there, bitch, a comprehensive guide to living your best life through radical self-love, a top-rated self-help book. Through education, Tiffany empowers people to understand why and how they have become stuck in the past and how to take action in all areas of their life. If that sounds like you, let me know in the comments. In the present moment, to completely change their lives in a positive way forever, which sounds really, really powerful. Tiffany's clients and course participants experience undeniable results, showcasing over and over that our unconscious mind can be our most powerful assets when we truly understand how to make it work for us. So I'm really looking forward to this interview. And Tiffany, well, I like to start, I think especially in times of COVID, everything can feel very heavy. So I like to bring one of our values here is lightness and fun. So I like to bring a little bit of lightness into the interview. So I'm going to ask you a bit of a silly question, but I think it gives us an insight into the person that we're interviewing. So what is your spirit animal and why?
This is going to be an interesting answer for you. So my spirit animal is actually a red fox.
Okay.
And the way that I know that is I actually take people through a meditation to help them reconnect with their intuition and their inner voice. And through that meditation, we find our spirit animal. And so the very first time I did the meditation, so I'm Canadian to give some context.
Yeah.
I went through the visualization and there was like a beaver, and I was like, seriously, like can't get any more Canadian than that. And I was like, are you my spirit animal? And the beaver was like, no, and like ran away, and there was a red fox there, and the red fox is my actual spirit animal. So it's actually a red fox.
Cool. But does it have any significance for you? Like why do you think it's the red fox?
For me, I think the red fox symbolizes a couple different things. Like there's like a tenacity and like a grit, but there's also like a playfulness and a fun side to it. And so for me, I'm at my best when I tap into both of those sides, when I tap into my drive and my purpose, and I remember to have fun.
Yes. Amen. So as you guys know, here in this community, we do a lot of amens, like, yes, as you guys are having insights, ahas, whether you're doing this on the replay, one of our community agreements here is we bring the energy and we also bring the fun. So I totally hear you on that. So let's jump in, and I want to ask you a little bit about your background. How did you, tell us, like, in 4 minutes, like, what's the backstory? How did you end up doing the work that you're doing here?
So I've always been super passionate about helping people. And I think it started when I was super young. I was actually abused by my stepmom, who was a domestic violence survivor. And so while I'm being locked in closets and burnt with curling irons, and a whole bunch of other things, at one point she threatened to leave me on the side of the road for a stranger to come and kill. There was kind of this knowing inside of me that she was broken. And so I couldn't hate her. I definitely didn't want to be around her, but I couldn't hate her. And so I really wanted to help people. And growing up through life, I saw the consequences that the abuse had on me. I was really angry. I had this need for perfectionism, but also people pleasing. So it's like this really weird combo where I have to make everybody happy and I have to be perfect.
Oh, you're preaching to the choir. I'm like, that's me. Yep.
So, and then at the same time, I didn't want to ever make anybody feel bad. So then I would internalize everything and change how I felt about something so that other people wouldn't feel negative about themselves. And then I had this need for control as well. And that manifested in eating disorders when I was in the late stages of middle school, early stages of high school. And so I decided in high school, I actually started in the fitness industry when I was 14. I really wanted people to be confident and comfortable in their own skin in a way that I had been. And back then I thought, well, I can be comfortable in my own skin if I teach enough other people how to do it. And so that's where I got started. So I worked with like every sports team in my tiny country town growing up from the ages of 14, went to university to be an athletic trainer. That took me to Australia, and Australia, I was there for 8 years, and it was a period of completely breaking down who I was and or who I thought I was and everything that I thought to be true. So about 3.5 years into Australia, I'd been dating someone for 3 years. The day I found out I was pregnant was the day I found out he had a girlfriend in another state. And my entire life collapsed. Then over the coming weeks, I found out that he was actually a compulsive liar and had lied to me pretty much about everything over the past 3 years. I hadn't told anybody I was pregnant. So when I miscarried the baby and I lost the baby, I didn't tell anybody that either. And it took me to an emotional low that I didn't even know was possible. And that actually brought me to my knees, to the point where I was like seconds away from stepping in front of a taxi to just end it all. That was the only way at that point in time that I could see to end my pain. So luckily, divine intervention or something happened. I couldn't move. I like mentally was committed. I was like, okay, I have to take this step. And my feet were rooted to the ground. And so I realized in that moment that if I didn't do something to heal the 28 years of hurt and pain that I had, that I probably wasn't going to make it to my 40th birthday or even potentially 40th. So that kind of led me on an inner healing journey. Did the therapy and the counseling, didn't get a lot of results from that. Did the rah personal development events, the loud music and the dancing, where you feel great when you're there. Then you feel super lonely when you leave. Did the life coaches. And this was really when life coaching first became a thing. And so I would say to the coaches, like, I have this stuff in my past I need to deal with. And overwhelmingly what they said was, well, you can't change the past, so just stop focusing on it. Let's focus on the future. I was like, that's literally what I've been doing. And I just about killed myself. So that's not going to work for me. That ultimately brought me to NLP and a branch of NLP called Matrix Therapies, which profoundly changed my life. And I've been using it ever since to help other people change theirs.
What are Matrix Therapies?
Have you heard of timeline therapy in NLP?
Yeah.
So it's a branch. It's similar to timeline therapy, except it incorporates a little bit more of a spiritual element. So
Mm.
we also incorporate, I don't know if you've heard of the Huna or Ho'oponopono techniques from
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii. It
Mm-hmm.
incorporates that. It incorporates some of the talking therapy, some inner child work. So it's similar to
Mm.
timeline therapy, but I
Mm-hmm.
personally found it to be much more effective.
Wow. I really want to recognize you for your vulnerability, and I think your courage in sharing your story. I read your forum, and in it was like you we all go through things, right? And I think especially right now people are going through a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And we have options. We have options of what we do with that thing. Rachel Hollis, I love her. She talks about how she saw her brother committed suicide, right? And she saw him dead. And I always had a really hard time with the concept of like just like destiny, right? Like it was meant to happen. And she said something that I really loved, and it was like, I don't know that it's meant to happen, but you can take what happened and do something with it. We
Mm-hmm.
can add something beautiful. We can turn it into something powerful. And I think that you've done that with your life and with your experiences. And I think it's so beautiful for you to be able to share and to just open yourself that way to the people that you serve and to the world. And I know that you have a big goal for impact. And you're just like, your big heart just really comes shining through.
Thank you. And I mean, when you heal all the negative emotions for things, and I've seen this both in myself and with my clients, is that that's really the only way that we can rewrite the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can look back at all of those experiences now and be so grateful for them, because I know like we wouldn't be having this conversation
Yes.
had that not happened.
Yes.
Those were pivotal points in my life where I recognized I'm playing small, I'm settling, I'm not showing up in the way that God or the universe or whoever it is that put me here. I'm not fulfilling the purpose that I'm here for. So I need to show up differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. Like I was talking about similar things with my partner, and when I read your story, there were definitely pieces of it that I was like, I definitely relate. When I was little, my mom, when she got angry, she would just like go after us, right? And it's not a pretty thing to talk about, because now we have a great relationship, because like I worked on it, and it just took so many years of like looking inward. And so I think that, again, it just takes so much strength and courage, and it led you to become an NLP expert. So we're going to be talking about NLP and the things that we can learn, both for, I'm assuming there can be some self-healing that comes from these NLP techniques. And also, I think a lot of people are feeling a lot of anxiety. They're feeling a lot of feelings. There's just like a lot happening right now.
Yeah.
And potentially people they have the possibility of reverting back to these patterns from their childhood, or back from when there was scarcity, because it's such an uncertain time. So
Yeah.
I'd love for us to dive in and start. Well, let's start at the very, very beginning. What is NLP for someone who is like, NLP, like, what does that even mean? Like, so what is this world of NLP?
So NLP stands for neuro linguistic programming. And being, in a sales group, most people are probably going to know NLP from Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, or, Grant Cardone talks about it. Frank Kern talks about it. So a lot of people in the sales industry tend to know of NLP as a sales technique. It was actually created back in the 50s as a therapeutic technique. And so it's really about understanding. So the neuro is about understanding our brain, how it's wired. A lot of people talk about this, and societally, we've kind of been programmed to believe in mind over matter, except that that's not the way that we're wired.
Yeah.
And so when we truly figure out how to program our unconscious mind, or our subconscious, which is what drives our behavior, when we program that properly, like, the world is our oyster. I've been with any of the students or clients that I've had since COVID-19 hit, I've been very like in their ear every day. Be careful of the language that you use, because if you're talking about tough times or dire times, what you're actually programming into the GPS of your mind is to see the tough times. I had a client yesterday make her first ever $10,000 sale. I personally am having like the best sales month of my life. And so because we haven't focused in on the negative and we've focused in on words like opportunity and whatnot, we've programmed ourselves differently. And so that's the neuro, is really understanding that the beliefs that we have, the emotions that we have, and the words that we use ultimately create our behaviors. And so if you don't like your behavior, then you actually have to go inwards and change those things to get a different outcome. Whatever you're doing in your external world is literally just a mirror reflection of what's happening inside. And so if you never work on the inside, you'll never get consistent long-term change outside.
So let's talk about how the inside works. So you said that, you know, people have said it's mind over matter, but that's not actually how it works. So how does it work? And what is the difference between the conscious and the subconscious? And how can someone who doesn't have NLP training, how can they really think of really understanding where our driving force, the reason that we do the things that we do, like where is that actually coming from?
Yeah. Can I use the whiteboard and like go full nerd?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, please.
That's why I always sit in front. I'm like, I just have to have my whiteboard. All right. So first thing that people need to understand is like, so the conscious mind is the part for logic and reason. If our mind was an iceberg, your conscious mind is the top part that we see. Can you see that okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so the unconscious mind is underneath. So the unconscious mind holds our beliefs, our emotions. It holds our memories. It holds all of that stuff. It's where our reflex-like behaviors come from. The conscious mind is the logic and reasoning. So if I was to ask you a question, let's say I was like, who's your favorite singer? And the first thing that popped into your head was Miley Cyrus. Before you had a chance to think about it, that's your unconscious mind answering you. And then what happens is the conscious mind likes to keep us safe. So the conscious mind will jump in and go, well, she had that whole like twerking at the VMAs. I don't know if that's a really great answer to give on a Facebook Live. So then if your conscious mind kind of throws that answer back, the unconscious mind will throw forward another answer. So it might go Miley or Britney Spears. And you're like, oh, but she had that whole like 2007 breakdown. And so your conscious mind thinks it's in control, but it's really only 4% of your mind's capacity.
4%. So your conscious mind is 4% of what's actually happening.
Yeah. So when we talk about mind over matter, we're talking about using the 4% to control the 96%. And then so when we here's something that's most people don't like to hear, is that willpower actually will not get you what you want, because willpower is a concept of the conscious mind. And studies have actually shown that willpower is like a glass of water. So every morning we wake up with a full glass, and every single decision we make, no matter how big or small, we tip a bit of water out. So the average American hits the snooze button 3 times every morning, which means that's 3 decisions they're making before they even get out of bed. Then you decide, do I wash my hair or not? Do I do my makeup or not? What do I wear? Do I shower? What do I eat? All of that stuff. So if you think of, let's use a diet example. Somebody has decided to change up their diet. They'll usually eat really well for breakfast because they have the most amount of water. They'll eat pretty well for lunch, decently well for dinner, and then they'll eat like the entire candy aisle at the grocery store from 9 or 10 o'clock. Because as soon as willpower runs out, like as soon as this glass is empty, whatever is programmed into our unconscious mind is what we revert to. So I always tell my clients that our behaviors are just symptoms of our belief systems. We would not behave in a certain way if it didn't align with a particular belief system that we have. So self-sabotage typically means that we have a limiting belief that's not aligning with what we want. Now, 95% of the belief systems that we have were planted in our mind between the ages of 0 and 7. And we are programmed to always be right. Like certainty equals safety, which is also why people are feeling so much anxiety right now. We have no idea how long this is going to last.
Correct.
No idea what's going to happen. Right? You've got the doomsday predictors who are like, the world is ending. We're going to be paying this off for 10 years. And then you've got other people who are like, no. And then you've got the conspiracy theorists. And like, there's just so much.
Zoom is actually behind this.
There's so much information, and literally nobody knows what the truth is.
Correct.
So we have no idea what the actual truth is.
So it's almost like at a global level, everyone's reverting back to this like 0 to 7.
Yeah, absolutely. So whatever is coming out, whatever was programmed in that time, now under times of stress is where you're going to revert back to. So what happens is every time we have a thought, that thought causes our body to release a chemical or a hormone. And then that hormone causes us to feel an emotion, and the emotion causes us to have a thought. And so this is where like learning to not accept every single thought that comes into your mind as truth becomes really important.
Yes.
Because if I started my day today and I looked up and I saw my calendar, the first thing I woke up this morning and I was like, I have so much to do today. I'm so stressed out. What that's going to do is it's going to release my fight or flight stress hormones. And then I'm going to feel more stressed and anxious. And I'll be thinking about more things to be stressed and anxious about. So most of the population, they spend 80% of their day in a stress anxiety cycle. Whereas if they chose a different reaction, I'd wake up, I see my calendar's full until like 6 o'clock tonight on Good Friday.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm actually really grateful that people want to interview me, that, you know, I have all these people who want to work with me, and I'm grateful that I have the tools that I have to help these people. Then all of a sudden, instead of releasing stress hormones, I'm releasing endorphins. So I'm releasing dopamine and serotonin. So I feel grateful, I feel happy, I feel joy. And then that causes me to think of and see more that I can be grateful for. So your thoughts, like changing your thoughts is literally the first step, because it literally changes the chemical composition of your body when you change your thoughts.
Yeah. That's really powerful. So like a few follow-up questions. So did we at some point connect? Are you part of the Tony Robbins world at all?
I haven't actually ever been to, but I'm friends with a lot of people who have. So
got it. Because in it, he talks about this concept of priming, right? So priming, he talks about, you know, a lot of like, he's big on NLP. He loves NLP. That was the first time that I was introduced to NLP, and I was like, oh my God. And like, then you hear really big names in the world of business talking about NLP. And then I thought, okay, like I really need to get serious about NLP.
So he studied directly with the two guys that created it.
Yeah. And he understood the power behind it. And I think it's just been a huge piece of his teachings just ever since. And so he teaches this concept of priming. What he talks about, I'm going to turn off my heater. It's cold here in San Diego. Okay. It's getting a little warm. So he talks about how, you know, so for a lot of you business owners, you've heard about marketing, right? And you know, here in this channel, I talk about branding, and specifically sales branding. What a lot of people don't know is that as you're engaging with the world, you are being primed, whether you like it or not. You are receiving messages, whether it be colors, fonts, whether it be like so many things are actually influencing you and your thoughts and your emotions. And so his thought is, if you're going to be primed anyway, you're going to be primed by the world, you should start by priming yourself, right? Like every single morning, start by telling yourself what it is that like that's important to you. And so many of you have seen, like I have my flashcards that I do every morning. These are like the thoughts, right? And then I have, you guys know I'm a huge fan of Rachel Hollis. I have like, these are my goals that I'm working on. I have like my questions right there. Like, so it is literally in my space. It's in my face every single day. And I get some questions from you guys. Like, you're like, how do you stay so positive? Because like I built systems for these things. I don't just like let it happen. And even with all the systems that I create, sometimes it's hard. And sometimes you find yourself like falling back on that 96% that you're talking about. So, and then I think for, you know, like I'm a huge brain nerd as well. So we have like you have the reptilian brain, that you have the limbic system, and then you have the neocortex. So are we talking the 4% is like your neocortex, and then like it's going to be the reptilian brain, and the limbic system, that's the rest of it, that's really like controlling what's happening? Yeah,
absolutely. There's been some really cool studies done on priming, where they would prime either different gender norms in your head or different ethnic norms. So they took people who were Asian American, so they have Asian descent but born in America, and they would give them a math test.
Math, yeah.
Without priming anything, right? We kind of know that stereotypically Asians are better at math.
Yeah.
And then, so they gave them a math test without any priming.
Yeah.
Then they had them come back about a week later and they asked them a number of questions about Japanese food. They talked about sushi and sake and you know, Japanese cuisine.
Yeah.
And then they gave them the math test again. And after, and then they had them come back one more time and they primed the American ethnicity. So they talked about burgers and fries. And then they got them to take the math test again. So they did the best on the math test. And the math test was basically the same the whole way. It was the same hardness. They did the best after the Asian or the Japanese was primed.
Yeah.
They did the same thing with women where they had them take a test and then they had them come back another time and try on bikinis before they took the test, prime the female, which, you know, stereotypically women aren't as good at math is the stereotypical belief, and then had them take the test again and they performed less well after the female priming. So it's important to realize that we have anchors to certain things, to certain identities. And so what NLP actually allows us to do is go in and reprogram what those anchors are. So that instead of seeing a bikini as bringing out like my quote unquote dumb side or my like only good for a certain thing side, I can prime that to mean confidence or power or femininity being, you know, my power place or whatever it is. So that's a really cool thing about NLP is that knowing how the brain works means that we can have systems to prime ourselves, like you said, and also so that we're not kind of at the whim of whatever stimulus we face in the day, is recognizing that we can actually go in and we can reprogram this 96% to be how we want it to be.
So how do we do that? How do we like so I guess a few questions, right? So I'm a huge nerd. So there's that. And Chris says, love it. I do the same thing. My little space, that's my vision all over in Post-its. Love it. Absolutely love it. So knowing that this 96% is so big, right? In the Power of Habit, the author talks about how there, you know, the habit loop. You have like the 3 steps. You have the trigger, you have the behavior, and then you have the reward. And what he talks about is you actually can't change a habit. Like you can only replace it, but you can change it, but you can't like get rid of a habit, right? Like it's there. It's like in your subconscious. So if you're going to change something, you can change it, but we can't get rid of it. So you have to change the behavior, you know, get the same reward, and the same trigger is going to keep happening. So as I'm thinking of this 96%, the question that comes up for me is, so how do we like, you know, like pop open the lid and even have an understanding? Do we need to know what's in there? Do we need to understand like that 96%? And then if the answer is yes, you have to actually understand what's underneath the hood. Then once we have this understanding, what do we need to then do with it? Like, how do we move past this? Like, well, you know, this isn't serving me. Like I'm say like some people here, we have coaches, consultants, you know, small business owners. So suppose someone is engaging, especially right now in COVID time, suppose they're finding themselves engaging in self-sabotaging behaviors, or reverting back into scarcity, reverting back into fear. How do we take that thing, that reality of what's happening, and what do we do with it?
So there's a couple different things that you can do. So recognize that we store unresolved negative emotions. Those are the only emotions that we store, right? So we've got this emotional trash can in our mind. I think this pen's almost dead. We've got this emotional trash can in our mind. So let's say the first time that you felt anger, you were 2 years old and your mom took you to Toys R Us, wouldn't buy you the toy that you wanted, right? So we, as a 2-year-old, don't have the understanding of how to deal with that emotion. And so we create what's called a gestalt. It's basically an imprint of the body of that feeling and where it was in the body. Every time
like in the body.
Yeah. So
you can feel it somewhere.
Yeah. So when I work with people to let go of this, we'll talk about like, where in your body do you feel anger? And then they'll kind of tap into it and be like, my gut, my stomach, my heart, my neck right here, wherever. So every time we feel how that 2-year-old felt, we add another imprint or another link in the chain. So for the horizontal gestalt, we have the same emotion. So we would have one for fear. We would have one for sadness. We would have one for guilt. All the negative emotions. Now, let's say the first time we felt fear was 1, sadness 3, and guilt 7.
Yeah.
So throughout our life, as we're adding these links, we're also filling this trash can up. And when the emotional trash can is full, there's a saying, you may have heard it, when emotions are high, intelligence is low.
Yes, yes, yes.
And so when this is high, when this is full, correct, our emotional resilience, our ability to tap into that logic and reason and say, what do I want from this situation, drastically drops. And so what happens is we actually revert back to the ages that we were when these imprints were first created.
And so I want to jump in really, really quickly, guys, because I know that I have heard from a lot of you. I've heard from clients. I've heard from just like messaging, like this is exactly what's happening right now. This is exactly what we're seeing as COVID, because COVID, like Tiffany was talking about, we don't know when this ends. We don't know how it looks at the end. Like we can listen to podcasts, we can listen to experts, but like there is no certainty of where we're going, what, like how long. And so what I'm noticing, and I've even noticed it in myself, guys, like that, like the, like it gets filled really fast. And I have found myself, and because I've been doing this work for like a decade, I'm able to like at a meta level see it and be like, oh my God, I'm doing this thing. I'm reverting back to a little girl. Like what is happening? So I can see it, but I'm seeing like this global phenomenon of this exactly happening, where everyone is like their garbage can, their emotional negative emotions garbage can is like full. And we're seeing so many people reverting. And then what I'm seeing, and the reason that I wanted to jump in here, guys, is what's happening, and I'm seeing this from a lot of the people in this community, is then these become self-sabotaging behaviors in our business. So rather than making the sales calls, rather than like going after the people, rather than doing the post, rather than sending the email, rather than doing these things that like just undeniably are going to get you business results, we're reverting back to these fear patterns that we're seeing. And so this is really important. I want you guys to notice, like, is this something that you're finding yourself doing? And if so, just like making a note of that, right? Like, this is what's happening here. It's not that like this is the truth. It's not that this thought is the truth. It is just that like this is happening, and I'm like, and sometimes you don't even know that you're allowing, but like this is happening. Like my garbage can is full. And I love that like an analogy of the garbage can.
Yeah, well, and like it's for me, it's my bathroom garbage can. Like we empty it, not like 2 seconds later, it's full. I don't even know how it happens, right? But and when you don't have anywhere for it to go, then it starts to spill out. So like things like road rage is not how an adult responds to being cut off in traffic or sitting in traffic. It's the 2-year-old throwing a temper tantrum for not getting what they wanted.
Yeah.
So part of our psyche, until we actually deal with these events, part of our psyche gets stuck there. So the horizontal gestalts are all the same emotion. Then the vertical gestalts are all related to a person. So this might be mom, right? And it's not to say that your parents are terrible people. They had their limiting beliefs and they passed it on, right? I was talking to somebody this morning and they said, we used to joke around that my mom's half-assed was everybody's excellent. She's like, and I've adopted that from her. And so I don't recognize when I'm performing well. So she's this behavior of being hard on herself was a learned behavior from her mom. That doesn't serve her. You would have one for dad. If you have siblings or friends or teachers or a boss who's ever let you down, you're going to have one for them. Exes, we know they leave us with plenty of emotional baggage. So then the limiting beliefs that we have around worthiness or around rejection, I can't make that sales call during COVID-19 because people are going to shame me for selling and whatnot. All of that gets stuck in here.
Is this the matrix you were talking about?
It is the matrix. So
Yeah.
this is the matrix that we get caught up in our body, and it becomes super heavy. And as you said, we then start reverting back to behaviors that don't serve us because we're carrying all of this toxicity. The good news is we actually can change our behaviors naturally without having to use the 4% to outthink ourselves when we take all this down. I had a client recently, she's actually out near you in San Clemente. But she had like a lifetime of her dad, like just putting her down. And she was so desperate for his validation that she internalized everything that he said. You know, it took us a while to take this down, but when we did, her dad called her one day and started belittling her, and she just hung up. And then she called me and she was like, holy crap, I don't know what just happened. I just hung up. And I was like, good, you set a boundary. Like, that's fine. And so you don't have to think about like, how do I stop myself from self-sabotaging? It just stops when we let all go.
So given that we have this complex fabric of the emotions from when we were 0 to 7, plus all of the things, I love Tony Robbins. I went to his events called Date with Destiny, and in it, it was the first time that I had a real, it was kind of like popping the hood open and being like, oh my God, like I had no idea that was even in there. Like, my goodness. And doing a lot of like healing work. And just, again, just now having awareness when things come up, like having the awareness to go like, oh, okay. 7-year-old me is, she's coming back. So how do knowing that this is there, and this is there for every single human being out there, because we have all just been through experiences. And I think just because of like what life is, we get opportunities to grow and develop and evolve through challenging times, right? And so we all have these like emotional imprints, these imprints of the past. So how do we, so I guess there's two questions. Like, do we need to understand that composition for us to move forward? And are there tricks that, before you've healed that, before you've like dealt with it, that people can start using now to start getting more of the results that they actually want? So 2 parts, like, do we like, and how do we get in there? How do we like, how do you actually like make those better? How do you get, lower, how do you toss the trash out?
So you don't necessarily have to know like everything that's in the trash can. And if you're working like with a coach like myself, that's actually my job to figure out what the players and the pieces are.
Yeah.
If you're working at this by yourself, what I would recommend is ask yourself, like, make a list of who are the people who've had a negative influence in my life. Start with the most negative person and write them a letter. And just put all the emotion in, because the only way that we can truly let go of an emotion is to have an experience of it. So what we do in my sessions is we have a very controlled, safe space for you to have an experience of that emotion. And then we take you to somewhere else. So the letter allows you to do that as well. Put everything down into the letter. And for some, for one particular X, you might have to write 3 letters. That's okay. You're gonna, it's kind of like layered, where you're gonna hit a different layer of depth each time. So you go through, you put all the emotions. This is how you made me feel when you did this. It doesn't have to be readable. You're not going to send it. So if your hand like starts to scribble, and actually write it, don't type it, because you activate a different area of your brain when you write. And so handwrite it out, get it all out there. At the end, finish it up with, in the future, when I think of you, I want to feel. And then you can either replace the negative emotions with a positive. I want to feel grateful, joyful, whatever. Or you can just say, I want to feel nothing at all. And then burn the letter. Now, I do have to say, like, just use fire safety. If you burn your house down or you hurt yourself, I'm not responsible. This is on recording.
We are not liable here.
Yeah. There's zero liability on us here. I recommend you do it either over the kitchen sink or in the bathtub, but just burn it and just let it all go. And then just keep working your way through the people, and that will take down most of this.
Okay. So one very specific technique is, if it, and maybe y'all, we have a lot of time on our hands these days. We are, most of us are in quarantine. So maybe in the past you didn't have time, but right now you probably have time. So this is like this is not going to be like the funnest, like lightest activity, but if you find yourself reverting back to a place that's not serving you, this could be a really powerful technique. This could be a really powerful exercise for you guys to do. And guys, it's like it's Friday. You have the weekend, you have tomorrow, and you have Sunday, so it's like perfect timing. You're gonna have a self-love date tonight, and just write out the letters to the people that were, if you're, so would it be like if you're feeling some sort of emotions now, recognize what those emotions are, maybe write them down on a piece of paper, and then just like find out who those emotions are connected to.
I would say the easiest way to do it is to think of the people that you've had negative experiences with.
Okay.
Even if they're still in your life, right?
Yeah.
Like I could write a letter to my mom for the time that she grounded me and I missed the high school dance or whatever, right? Like it doesn't matter. And just let go of your judgment around what comes out, because as you start writing, your unconscious mind will just keep throwing forward ideas. And there's a tendency to be like, I can't believe I was mad over such a thing. At one point in time, that did matter to you. That was a big deal. And that's why your mind held on to it. And so it doesn't matter if, now who cares that I missed the high school dance? Well, at that point in time, it was a big deal for you. So just allow yourself to have whatever emotions about whatever experiences. But I would focus on the people first, like who were the people who had the most major negative influence on you, and work on writing letters directly to them, and then just burn it.
Okay. Great. So that's a very specific exercise that you guys can do this weekend. What about if, our people here are finding themselves reverting back to like self-sabotaging business behaviors that are not serving them? Is there a way to say like, I find myself say like they have to make sales calls. They have to send out, the thing. Like, I know that sales has been and we're going to get into sales, some like sales strategies here. I know that sales has been one of the most like popular topics that we've had here. Whenever we do anything around sales, you guys are super excited. You show up, you guys have so many questions. And I know that this is a space that can have a lot of these like self-sabotaging, like sales just can bring up so many emotions for people, right? Because there's just like, you're putting yourself out there, there's rejection, there's like, don't want to feel like you're pushy, especially being coaches, consultants, like service providers, right? Like there's all of these emotions. So when people are finding themselves self-sabotaging, is again, especially in these times where like emotions are high anyway, just by like where we're at. So we did the people. Is there any other way? So suppose someone just finds themselves procrastinating. They're not doing the thing that they know they need to be doing. What's something that they can do so to better understand or like start doing it? Is there a technique that you could talk about when it comes to self-sabotaging in that regard?
So I would say that like let's go with procrastination. What I use is I'll ask myself or I'll ask my clients, like, what's the purpose of this procrastination? So let's say,
what's the purpose of this procrastination? So you guys can ask, what's the purpose of this action that I'm taking?
And then, so, when you say, let's say I say, what's the purpose of procrastination? And the answer that comes up is to not look dumb. Okay. So what's the purpose of not looking dumb? To stay safe. What's the purpose of staying safe? And just keep asking what's the purpose. And that'll ultimately take you down to the root of the problem, so that you can figure out either what time in your life that came from, so that you can do the letter or, do some journaling around that. And then whenever you find that you get to the root of that problem, right? So for me, I had a lot of worthiness stuff for a long time. And the abuse that I had often came into that from my stepmom. And so the thing that we can also do is ask ourselves, what did I learn from that experience? Because every experience happens for our greatest good. And so when we start asking ourselves, how did this happen for my greatest good? Then we can start to reframe those events. So was it my fault that I got abused? No. Was it the fact, was it a lack of worthiness that allowed me to be abused? No, it was hurt people. So I got to I got the opportunity. I don't know if it's a great opportunity, but I saw firsthand how abuse is passed down generationally, and I could decide to be the person who breaks that chain in that cycle of my family. I can choose to help other people. I can choose to work with domestic violence survivors so that that doesn't keep happening. And so when you start to then look at your challenges and ask yourself, what did I need to learn from this? You gain resources that allow you to look at that event in a different light. And even doing that can shift like worthiness or confidence or any of that into action that's instead of procrastination.
Yeah, that's really powerful. All right. So I'm thinking of like, there's so many things for us to cover. I'm like, okay, where do we want to take this next? Do you want to talk very, very briefly about limiting beliefs? Like I think we've talked about them sort of, but is there anything separate from what we've talked about that you would like to say about limiting beliefs?
I'd say there's 3 that ultimately every limiting belief comes back to. The belief of not being good enough, the belief of no one will love me often leads to a fear of rejection, and it leads to people pleasing and whatnot. The second one is a fear of not being good enough or not being worthy. And that comes from the need for significance. It's also where we find like people hating on other people because the only way they can feel higher up is if they're putting somebody down. And then the third, which is probably the deepest rooted one, it's our most instinctual one, is the need for safety, which can then turn us into people who are highly critical, or it can turn us into control freaks where I have to do everything. I can't delegate. It's my way or the highway. I'm the only one who can do it good enough. And so that need for safety is kind of the base of it. And then the worthiness and the acceptance is the next level.
Okay. So when you're finding yourself having some sort of limiting belief, we bring it back, it'll come down to those 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. If you guys have any questions here, definitely let us know. We have Jacqueline in the house, Monica, Tony, Chris, Marlies, Christina. Good to have you guys here. Okay, so let me dive into, let's talk about words. So are words impacting our current reality and our future? How can we think about that? Not that we have an understanding of this, like this complex matrix of our emotions or experiences. And I think beyond words, what are tools at our disposal right here, right now? And it sounds like words are one of them that we can like start using to stand more in our power and be more, whether it be, I see it as there's sort of like abundance mindset or like scarcity mindset. Like how do we, regardless of what's happening in the world and in our lives, how do we stand for our highest good? How do we stand for our most abundant self? And so words, I'm imagining, is a piece of that. And are there other tools in our toolbox that we can utilize to really make sure that we're like setting ourselves up to be strong?
Yeah. So I would say if there's one thing that you can master after this talk, it would be your words, because that encompasses both the words in our head. So we have 1,500 words per minute that pass through our head, and then our communication with others. And both of those very much create our life. So we've got this thing in our brain called the reticular activating system, or the RAS. And that's basically like the world's most advanced GPS. So we don't actually we think we communicate in words, but those words in our brain are redirected into pictures. So everything I say, you get a picture in your mind. So right now you've got a picture in your mind of a picture in your mind. If I said purple frog, you would have a purple frog in your mind.
Yeah.
So whatever picture we put into the reticular activating system is how we're setting the filters of what we see. So especially right now, like there has never been a time in our lifetimes, unless, you're like 80 or 90 years old and lived through the Great Depression and the World War II. There has never been a more important time to pay attention to your thoughts. and the words that you use. So if you, whatever you put in here, what you focus on expands. So if you keep talking about how things are hard, if you keep talking about tough times, if you keep talking about a recession or the economy collapsing or any of these things, then you will not see opportunity that lies in front of you.
I just, can we get an amen? Like, that was so good, guys. Like, if you're going to take anything with you, like, it's all been so, so good. But there has never been a more important time in definitely our lives, especially, I don't know, as a millennial, like, we've never seen something like this, for you to stand guard at the door of your mind, for you to be really on top of that filter that's allowing things in, and you do get to, you're in control of that filter. So like my mom, and this drives me crazy, guys. I love my family. If you guys are listening, Mom, I love you. Right, sister, I love you. But like, the truth is, I had to unfollow my sister on Facebook, right? Because there was so much focus on the news and negativity and like how many people died and this and that, and it's just like it gives me anxiety, right? Just like seeing how much of a focus. And then you're right, like if that is your focus, well, that's what you're gonna see. And so as business owners, if you're finding yourself just paying attention to how it's so hard, how it's so difficult, why it's gonna keep being difficult, why this is, so bad, that like, you're gonna be just aware of that. Whereas if we just stood over here and we put on like these glasses, maybe not rose colored glasses, but we're looking into a brighter perspective and looking for abundant words and abundant questions, like asking, the quality of your life is based on the types of questions that we ask. And so this reticular activating system is so important. That's going to frame where, like, the resources you see, the partnerships you see, the potential clients you could be working with, that like with you, that maybe are so excited to work with you, but you wouldn't take that next step of bringing them into your world as as your client, if you're looking that way. You got to be looking at the possibilities.
Yeah. So our words create our reality. And so, if you're focused on, somebody asked me the other day if they could interview me in their Facebook group, and I said, absolutely. And they're like, I only have 700 people. And I was like, that's 700 people who can hear my message. Like, there are two sides to every coin. Right now, you can focus on how many people are dying from coronavirus, or you can focus on how many people are surviving, which, by the way, the survival numbers far, far outweigh the death numbers.
Absolutely.
And, like, every death is absolutely a tragedy. And I want, we should all take a moment to mourn the people that we've lost. And we have to recognize that they throw out these big numbers, but they don't talk about what is the population of the US. Like, the population of the US is 3,490,250,000 people. And so we're talking about less than 1% of the population has been affected by actually getting this virus, right? It's about 3% of the population who have now filed for unemployment and are feeling the financial side of this. So there is two sides to every coin. And, the words that the media uses, and I'm not going to get on like a whole, like, you're hypnotized by or some people are hypnotized by the media, is that there is an agenda for everything.
Yes.
So, the media, if you think about, they
have a business model. We're business owners, guys, here. We're business owners here. We understand that you have to have a business model. As the media, their business model is to keep you like glued to the screens. And guess what? We talked about the three parts of your brain. You have your reptilian brain, you have your limbic system, and you have your neocortex. The amygdala, which is like, it's this part of your brain that's looking for fear, like, it gets addicted. You do not have the ability to look away. So if you are, the first thing in the morning that you're looking at are negative news, if like, and this is what people are doing, you're waking up and the first thing is you're just putting on the news, and it's filling your body up with cortisol, and it's filling you up with anxiety. Guess how you're going to show up for your business? Guess how you're going to show up for your family, for your spouse, for your loved ones, for the world, for your possibilities, like that, full of fear and cortisol and negativity. Whereas if you turn that ish off and you ask good questions, like, how is there grace in this moment? How is this one of the most abundant times in my life for my business? Guess what? You're going to get different questions. With different questions, you're going to get different answers and different results. So it really does come down to our perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and it's the same thing. Anybody that has approached me for business opportunities or attempting to sell me something, if they've said anything about tough times or dire circumstances, I had somebody want to be the person who edits and publishes my podcast. And they said, I've been listening and your podcast is great. And I was like, thank you. And you clearly haven't really listened to it because the language that you used in your email, I know that you either skipped over the episode on Words Matter, or you just didn't really take it in. And I'm not going to start off a relationship on that note. And so our words, how we're talking to other people, absolutely matters right now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I want to be really respectful of your time. I know we have 3 minutes, and this has been super, super powerful. I know I have learned a lot, and I know that you guys have learned a lot. So Monica says, yes, I agree. So my family and friends have the same tendency to follow the negative of this cycle of life. I rather focus on my podcast, setting up goals, and think through new opportunities. Good job, Monica. Like, that is the place for us to focus. So, there's so much for us to talk about. There's so many things in terms of sales for us to talk about. We had like the top, 5 practices to become a master communicator. So I know that you said you have a 10-day mini course for people to work on their own mindset. So if people were interested in that, if you guys are interested, you can put #mindset. And I'll make sure that I send you the link. You guys can also, I can put it in the comments. It's limitlessplaybook.com. But if you guys need to, I can also just send that your way. So #mindset, and I'll send you the link. And if people wanted to learn more about you, if they want to, like, where can people find you? What are all the ways that people can reach out to you? What's the best way for them to continue to hear your incredible goodness?
Thank you. So I'll comment in the comments as well. So then people can just follow me, connect with me, add me as a friend. That's cool. If you go to my website, www.bluelotusmind.com, it will connect to all of my content everywhere.
Perfect. All right. So we have 2 minutes. Let's see. In the 2 minutes, let's talk just what are some quick things when it comes to specifically to sales? What are like your 2 most powerful, like things that you want to share, your 2-minute power session when it comes to NLP and sales?
So ultimately, sales are about relationships. And we, I'm sure you've said it many times in this group, people buy from who they know, like, and trust. When we get into sales mode, we tend to get focused on what we need. So, I need this sale to pay my rent. I need this sale to pay my car payment, to pay this. If you were to really connect with your highest intention, like, what is the reason that you're even doing this? What is your purpose? And combine your purpose with their needs, both will get met. Whereas if you're just coming at it from I need this paycheck so that I can do this, you energetically, and there's a ton of science behind this as well, you energetically will put off the vibe that you don't really care about them, you're in it for you. And so if you just focus on building that relationship, understanding their needs, and relating your purpose back to their needs, they'll hand over their credit card, no problem. Like I said, it is like, quote unquote, one of the worst times in history, and I am having the best sales month of my life.
Amen, girlfriend. Well, thank you so much. And I just want to remind you guys that, again, we talked about perspectives. We talked about the way that you can approach these times. And I want to remind you, I really strongly want to remind you that you have never been more needed in like history. As coaches, consultants, as service providers, the world is hungry for your gifts. They're hungry for your leadership. They're hungry for your courage. So show up. This is your time. And I know you guys here are here because you have big hearts and because you care about the world and because you care about your people and you get them results. So have this be a time of abundance. Show up, like, even as your knees are shaking, like, do the work, set, prime yourselves in the morning, use the right words, right? Set your RAS to make sure that you're bringing in the positive perspective. But know that you are needed. Know that this is your time. Know that this is the time that you get to go and serve your heart out and go make some sales, right? Like, go share your gifts with the world and get paid for doing that. So thank you so much, Tiffany, for sharing your incredible story, your perspective, your lessons. This was so powerful. We're really happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, bye everyone. We will catch you again very soon. Okay, bye.